So one of my goals is to put out a new video every week between now and the end of the year. I think there's like 15 left. And decided a certain percentage of those videos should be dedicated to educational purposes. So I created a new series, went so far as to begin filming the first episode, and quickly realized that I was going to need both an opening montage and a theme song for this series. So today I thought I'd show you my process of how I go about creating a theme song in a little segment called Jingling Elliot. So jingle is to the music world what a knock-knock joke is to the comedy world. You have a very short amount of time with which to deliver an important idea that has to stick with the audience and get stuck in their heads. So let's start with the inspirations. I have a couple of different tracks in mind. The vibe I'm going for is late 80s instructional video. So very cheesy, very dated instruments, but I'm hoping that will be part of what makes it memorable to people. So the first sample, or the first thing that I'm thinking about or referencing when making this track, is "We Built This City" by Starship. Let's take a listen. After the ad's over. So I'm going to try and copy the instrumentation. I love the way the drums sound. I love the slap bass. And I'm going to try and replicate that kind of call response thing that's going on. So that's one inspiration going in. The other is George's answering machine from Seinfeld, which you may know better as the theme from Greatest American Hero. Try not to laugh. Believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beat. So very similar instrumentation. So we're going to try and create something that's in between these two dynamics. It's important to have more than one inspiration going into a composition like this. If you have only one, it's considered a ripoff. If you have two or more, it's an homage. Who knew? So the next step of our journey is to figure out what the beats per minute should be on our composition. So I'm just going to go to Google. I'm going to type in tap BPM for beats per minute. Yes, I am filming my monitor. We'll go over screen capturing in a later episode when I'm not depending on my system for response time. So we go there and we're just going to try and figure out a tempo that's somewhere in between those two tracks, so something like this. So I'm going to tap that out on the keyboard. The more taps, the better, the more accurate your count will be. So this says we should be at 81 beats per minute. We're using a Mac desktop computer, GarageBand 5.1, and this is a USB-controlled MIDI keyboard. So a very basic setup here. Most of it comes with the system, so people can replicate these experiments at home. New composition here, we're going to set the tempo within GarageBand to 81. And then we should hear a nice metronome when we record. So those are quarter notes that you're hearing. So I typically start with the drums just because that's an easy bed that you can lay everything else on top of. Any drum kit will do for now, so I'm just going to pull up a rock kit. You get pretty good at playing this stuff on a keyboard like this. Let me just listen to this tempo for a second and figure out how my drums might go. I think I have an idea here. Okay, so here you can see our MIDI information that was recorded. I'm going to quantize that so it'll set all the timing perfectly. This is kind of a guess and check to figure out what exactly your math is. I'm thinking these are 16 notes, 1/16. You can tell by how much the notes move and by how it sounds. Cool, so we have a basic drum kit there that's already starting to sound like DuckTales, which is one of the best theme songs ever. So we have all these digital notes that were recorded. We can change what note it was after the fact, fix it in post. We can change the instrument entirely, so we could say, hey, maybe this should be a choir. How about an alien tempo? And then it'll just play back in that new instrument all these same notes. Because this is a cool way to figure out now which drum kit we want, because I have access to several here on my list. But now I kind of like the notes that are being played. Now it's more a matter of figuring out the right sounds for the kick and the snare. So let's just, I'm gonna loop this and get it playing. And we can just cycle through drums. That's a techno one, African kit. So lots of cool sounds. It's really just about finding the right tone for what you're working on. One thing I like to do while I'm recording is anytime I come across a new instrument in my catalog that reminds me of a famous song that I know how to play, I like to take at least a little moment to enjoy myself. Gotta have a little fun while you're working. Alright, I like this one. Let's just go with that for now. I don't want to mess with this too much. So we've got that saved. We can change the notes later if we don't like them. Let's get into some bass sounds. I like doing all of my tracks as MIDI, at least until I figure out what I'm doing, just because it's so flexible in terms of changing the timing or the instrument or the notes. A slap bass would be cool if I can find one. Slapped electric bass. How I figure out what key I'm going to play in is often dictated by the sound of the bass, which doesn't sound as good at C as it does at G. So let's play in G for now. Now we need a synth sound. I'm going to figure out the notes first on a piano, and then we can worry about the instrument later. If you bang a key on accident or you miss a note, you can just go in here and drag it out and fix it. And you can pencil them in too, like this. So you don't even need a keyboard, you know, you could theoretically draw this whole thing. If we want this to be really cheesy, we want some hand claps. Claps. Fantastic. Spilled my coffee. Great, so now we got some cool sounding claps. So already this is starting to take shapes. Yes, I love it. Step 2, more coffee. Okay, so before when we played the drums, we only played the kick and the snare. We're also going to want to add some splashes and some hi-hats and some cymbals. So I like having those on a separate track so you can control the volume between the two easily. Okay, cool. So that's something we can work with. Alright, so I'm getting a little confused about the chord progression. So I'm going to do just a new piano track. Okay, so I figured out I'm doing it wrong. Okay, so I've kind of combined all the instruments I've played so far, fixed them so that the musical chord progression makes sense. So I'm going to lay that down just as a piano. Okay, so I think it should go something like this. So I like the first half. The second half has to do something different. Sweet. Jingling Elliot V1. Okay, so now that I have that figured out, I'm going to go back and redo my bass line. This is the entire process, is just figuring things out. You know, it's sort of like stumbling around in the dark with a flashlight. Sometimes it takes a long time to discover something you're happy with, and other times it comes right away. That's cool. So this slap bass, if you hit the note hard enough, it'll give you a glide. So a lot of these instruments have more than one function that a note can do. So this is a cool repeating synth. Let's give that a try. This is like Mannheim Steamroller. This is great. So I had to modify this one a little bit to get the echoes coming at a better frequency. So if we look so far at the tracks we've created, we see that every one of them goes all the way through. So the next 2 or 3 that I create, I want to make sure that they're only highlighting a specific section of the track. So they kind of feel like solos. So let's find kind of a synth lead that can play opposite those hits we created earlier. Alright, so I like that. I think we just need to kind of modify. I want to sort of replicate that instrument that goes. Okay, very happy with that. That feels educational. So I think we need something even more that adds a little bit of urgency in that end part. Something with kind of a... So that one's cool, but the echo needs to be faster. Alright, so we've got 10 MIDI tracks here, a composition I'm pretty happy with, and I'm the client, so I'm saying that's a wrap for today and today's lesson. Generally at this stage in the game, I like to export what I've got and get it on my iPhone, get it in my car, listen in headphones, listen at work, because all of those things will give you ideas about what to do next if you need to add more instruments or need to take away instruments, and especially what needs to happen in the mixing stage. So we'll focus on all that stuff in a future episode. So for today, just getting the jingle recorded, mission accomplished. So I'm Jingling Elliot. Thanks for watching. Sorry it was a long one. Join me next week when I explore the benefits of keeping your home studio clean, you know, because you never know what kind of treasures you might find. Ooh, is that falafel? Nope.